This is my audience. What do you imagine when you think of bees? Maybe you remember that time you were stung by one in the neighborhood swimming pool. Or maybe you taste the honey that you put every day in your morning coffee. What you probably don't think of is the lucrative business opportunities they present for entrepreneurs. But after this, you will. Beekeeping is a fascinating industry to be a part of, with endless options for making money that every aspiring apiarist should be aware of. However, an aspiring beekeeper should first and foremost understand what goes on in the beehives they'll be taking care of. The hive itself is primarily made of beeswax, which is a material secreted by worker bees and fashioned into hexagonal cells that form the iconic honeycomb we all know and love. These cells are used to store pollen, honey, and even baby bees. The entire bee colony, when handmade, typically consists of a bottom board to keep out invaders, a brood box, one or two supers filled with frames of honeycomb, a hive roof, and a queen excluder. Now you might be thinking to yourself, hold on a second. Why would the queen need to be excluded from anything? A queen excluder actually serves a very important role that can be explained by the individual roles of each type of bee. A bee colony consists of worker bees, drones, and, of course, the queen. The worker bees are females that basically do everything in the hive but reproduce. If you've seen a bee before, it's almost guaranteed to have been a worker bee. They take care of proceedings within the hive until they are mature enough to leave the hive and forage for nectar and pollen. They will do this until their wings are basically too run down to fly anymore, causing their lifespan to range anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on the season. Drones, on the other hand, are the few males produced by a hive to serve one purpose: find and mate with a new queen from a different hive, after which they die. Queens, however, live only one to a hive and are responsible for producing eggs up to 2,000 a day. They have nothing really to do with honey production, which is why there must be a queen excluder between the brood boxes and the honey supers in any colony that keeps a queen from entering the areas where nectar is stored and turned into honey and laying eggs in that honey. Now, once you have a grasp on the workings of the hive, you can move on to preparing for starting up your own apiary. First of all, you should research both the broader beekeeping market, which we'll look at more in a moment, as well as your local market. Demand for certain products can vary widely between areas, so it's best to understand what consumers in your region will be looking for and what you might be able to successfully introduce to them before you start your business. Next, check for and obtain any necessary permits or licenses that are required for an agricultural operation like beekeeping in your area. Then you need to purchase all of the necessary equipment you need to get started, which can include the hives themselves, a hive tool, a honey extractor, a smoker, and protective gear, followed last of all by the bees themselves. Your bees may also require supplemental nutrition during early spring or late fall, so a feeder may be a necessary purchase too. It's best to start small with only one or two hives until you get the hang of being an apiarist. You should also decide on a marketing strategy to bring you customers once your first product harvest is ready. Note that the products you can offer consumers varies widely, but more on that in a moment. Of course, you must also make sure that you care for your bees properly. This includes regular hive check-ins, monitoring the production of brood by the queen, and getting ahead of any parasite infestations. Finally, after a long season, you're ready to harvest your honey. When your honey's moisture content is precisely 18%, which you may have to check with a special tool or borrow from a beekeeping mentor, it is officially turned from nectar to honey and it's ready to be gathered. There are a few different ways to go about this, but we will talk about the flow tool process. You can purchase a special hive component with mobile frames that rotate into a formation that allows honey to flow out of the hive when you turn a dial. Super easy. This streamlines the process like never before and is highly recommended for new beekeepers like us. You now have a successful business and your first honey harvest under your belt, but what should you expect from the future of your new chosen industry? With the current trend toward increasing consumer health consciousness, honey's antibacterial and nutritious properties are making it a hot commodity. In fact, the industry is projected to experience a positive growth rate over the next few years. However, challenges you will be facing include colony collapse disorder, American foul brood disease, and varroa mites, which you should stay on top of by thoroughly researching warning signs and prevention and treatment methods. You should also note whether any of your neighbors happen to be using pesticides that could be toxic to your bees, and you should manage that situation effectively. But cheer up, your market-ready products could be broadening. Other products that you can offer to your consumers besides honey include bee pollen, propolis, which is another bee byproduct, and even royal jelly, which is what bees feed their young. All of these aspects of beekeeping and the future of the industry may seem overwhelming, but if you take it all one step at a time, I feel confident that you will soon have a thriving apiary. Trust me, you won't regret getting into the business of bees. Here's my audience again. Yay!